What's the better deal? Do you want to spend $5 for 6 hooks from a name brand, or buy 100 of these suckers for $5? Holy mackerel! I'm going to test them this week on Kayak Hacks.
Welcome back! If you're new to the channel, we cover kayak modifications, spin, and fly fishing. So poke that subscribe button so you don't miss anything. Now, let's get on with it.
Before we get into testing the strength of these name brand hooks versus generics, and these again were 6 for $5, and here you get about 100 for $5, let's talk a little bit of philosophy. You know, a lot of people will say, well, the name brand's going to stay sharper longer. The name brand's not going to rust as fast. Well, the question you have to ask yourself is, what is the lifespan of these hooks? How many hours of fishing do you get before you get hung up and have to break off, before an oyster cuts it and you have to break off, or a fish breaks it off? Or if you're like me and you hate touching a stingray, you cut it off. So if you end up doing that a lot, even though these may be just a little bit worse, and we have to find that out, they may be a better deal because their lifespan may match the lifespan you get out of this. And so why spend basically $1 a hook when you can spend 5 cents a hook for one of these? The only physical difference in the design of these is that the name brand Gamakatsu, the circle hook the point of it there kind of pitches in just a little more than this one does. So this might have just a little more circle action than this. But every manufacturer is going to be different, and I could probably go find an owner hook that has a little bit different angle on the point as well. So I don't think that's a big deal. Now I'm going to test these in 2 ways. First, I'm going to drop each in some salt water, leave them there for about a week, and then see how rusty they are on the other end. The second way I'm going to test them is I'll tie them up, and then I'll hang a weight underneath, and we'll see how much force, if any, is required to get it to bend. And boy, I'm really hoping that these guys are going to be reliable enough, because I go through these things a lot. Boy, I get cut off, snapped off, stingrayed off all over the place during the summer, and I bet I spend $50 on hooks in a season. I'd rather spend $5 and get maybe 2 seasons out of 1 pack. Now it's time for the corrosion test. I've got a little container full of salt water here. I'll drop a Gamakatsu in there, and then I'll drop one of these generics in there. I'll be able to tell them apart because you remember the generic was just a little bit smaller than the Gamakatsu. So I'm going to leave these in here for a week, and let's see what they look like from a rust perspective. It's been a week. Here's the Gamakatsu, here's the generic. Let's check out them both for rust. Both are looking pretty good. I see no rust on the Gamakatsu. It's all pretty clean looking. On the generic, there's a little bit of rust right here underneath the barb, but otherwise it's hanging in there pretty well. To make sure we don't get them mixed up, I'm going to take the hook right out of the pack. Then I'm going to clamp it right here so it's hanging down, and then I'll hang a line to the weight and we'll see if it bends. I've got a 15-pound weight on now, and let's see if it flexes or breaks when I gently suspend this by this 50-pound test line. We get a lot more flex in the hook, but it's not straightening, and it looks like I've got 5/8. There's a 5/8 inch gap right there. Okay, note after the 15-pound test that the gap here is much larger than it was before. So I'm going to throw this hook out. I don't want to use it because it's clearly been deformed by the 15-pound weight. Same size generic, 100 for $5. Let's pull one out and clamp it down. I'm starting with a 1/8 inch gap between the clamp and the tip of the hook. Okay, generic with the 15-pound weight. Easing it in. Looks like a lot greater flex. Actually, that's only a 1/2 inch of flex. The other one was 5/8. So the generic hook seems to actually be stronger. That's very, very interesting. Just to make sure, I'm going to redo the test with the Gamakatsu and get another good measurement to verify that it was 5/8, because this is amazing. Okay, the way I have this clamped in, it's starting out at 5/16. And let's get this on and see what happens. A new flex is about 1 inch. That was an interesting test. So it looks like you can spend $5 and get 6 of these Gamakatsus, or $5 and get 100 of these generics. And the generics seem to be as good or even better in some cases as the name brand. So your choice, and again it goes back to what is the lifespan of this hook? How often do you get hung up and have to cut off? And if you do that a lot because you're fishing where the fish are, and that's always where there are obstacles, then maybe you ought to switch to these cheapos that you can get on eBay. I'm going to start using these once I use up all of these. It seems to me that there's really no question. What's your perspective? Have you used these before? How do they perform for you? Throw them down in the comments below. Thank you.